Here they come.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Here They Come. I'm Jonathan Marsh.
And I'm Kate Lockhart.
This is the USTA podcast, your place to find out what's going on in the world of harness racing. Today I'm going to start off with a story about Marcus Miller. He was recently in the Chicago Tribune, which, first of all, was good to see harness racing getting some publicity in the newspapers. He's been driving 5 nights a week at Balmoral Park and Maywood Park, at least last year, and he brought in $90,000 last year, and he's doing this as a student, which is pretty darn impressive.
It is impressive that he's a student full-time at DePaul University right in Chicago, and then drives as much as he does. I would say it would have been nice to have $90,000 a year when I was in college, but it sounds like he's really focused. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He says it's a tough schedule, but he makes it work. And what I thought was interesting is how he focused on, he's definitely going to graduate from DePaul, but he wants to keep racing at Chicago tracks until he's done making rookie mistakes, is what he said. He said, it's going to be better for him in the long run to stay and really learn his trade there rather than go to a place where the purses might be higher. So.
Yeah, and he wasn't initially interested in harness racing, which I thought was kind of interesting since his father was into it. Well, it still is. And he actually got into it once his father let him jog a horse, and he just kind of said he was hooked after that. So I think initially it wasn't football he was into.
Yeah, and then he hurt himself and missed a race that he was scheduled to drive in and decided he'd focus on racing instead. So looks like Marcus will be carrying on the Miller tradition. Well, next up, the Meadowlands has been getting a little more interactive on their website lately. They've really seemed to focus on original video content that they've been producing to their YouTube page. It's been great to see some of the videos they've produced this year, a couple that were interesting. They did one on New Year's resolutions of drivers. They did one on who will win the driving title at the Big M this year. And then the most recent one is about driving strategies in heavy wind and in the cold, which I really enjoyed seeing all the drivers' take on that, particularly Tim Tetrick, who just looked absolutely bundled up.
Yeah, there was a couple guys that they showed before him, and they looked like they were pretty relaxed, and then you get to him, and he's all bundled up. Looks like he needed a space heater or something.
Yeah, he had a scarf on or a balaclava, something covering half his face. It was great.
Yeah, and of the videos that you mentioned, I liked the drivers talking about their New Year's resolutions and what they were going to do New Year's Eve. And John Campbell, I thought his was particularly interesting. He was talking about playing a little Texas Hold'em the night of.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a surprise to me, but I guess John's a poker player.
Speaking of the Meadowlands, Nicole Kraft caught up with Dave Brower, who is the Meadowlands handicapper and author of Harnessing Winners.
Well, Dave, it must be exciting to be back at the Meadowlands. What's it like to kind of get back in gear after being off for a while?
Well, it was an especially long layoff for me this year, Nicole, no question about that, since we did not have a fall harness meet, which usually kicks in right around Thanksgiving that week or the week after. So, that extra couple of weeks of downtime kind of made me a little lonely for some top-quality harness racing. And as you know, over the past couple of seasons, the way the schedule has changed throughout the metropolitan area, I think we're really at our strongest at the Meadowlands in the winter. That is when we put on the most competitive, the best betting racing cards of the year, Fridays and Saturday nights over the winter. The fans just can't wait to get to get cracking on those programs because the races are pretty competitive, and as you know, there's a ton of betting value here at the Meadowlands, which some of the other smaller venues just can't offer.
What's the secret to being a good handicapper? It seems so complicated, but you do it so well. So how do you do that?
There's a very, very big difference between picking winners and making money. And anybody who's been around the track for more than a couple of days will tell you that they are separate issues. Sometimes picking winners can be very, very easy, but translating that into profit is hard. I think the best way to try and go about it is simply you have to pay attention. I mean, even if you're watching a race that you don't like or didn't make a bet on, you need to watch that race very, very closely because there might be clues in it for future consideration. And you also have to have all of the information.
Who's your favorite driver to bet?
Believe it or not, it's George Brennan. George Brennan has a knack of waking horses up. He does it better than anybody I've ever seen. So whenever I particularly see George hop on a horse for the first time, I'm paying extra special attention. And my eyes are glued after the post parade to just see how George takes the horse around the track.
Well, thank you, Dave. It is always a pleasure to talk with you and get your insights.
Nicole, always a pleasure to talk to you as well, and you guys do a great job on that magazine.
Well, that was some great insight from Dave Brower. In 2010, we're getting ready for the next batch of the experimental ratings from Stan Bergstein. Looking forward to those in the February issue of Hoofbeats, and there's a great opportunity to get to see them ahead of time before anyone else. If you become a fan of Hoofbeats Magazine on Facebook by going to facebook.com/hoofbeatsmagazine, you'll have an opportunity to see the experimental ratings before anyone else. They'll be emailed to your inbox on January 29th.
Yeah, if you go on Facebook, you get a little bit of a heads up. It's kind of a first time for at least the Facebook aspect, so that'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, and if you'd like to see the full experimental ratings, the entire list from when they were started in 1965, you can do so by subscribing to Hoofbeats Magazine. You can do that easily online by going to shop.ustrotting.com, or you can call 877-800-8782, extension 2. You can just go to facebook.com/ustrotting to become a fan of the USTA on Facebook. All right, well, in other news, this week it was announced that the Meadows television signal is going to reach more homes in 2010 than they have previously. They reached an agreement with Comcast where now they'll be able to be seen in approximately 500,000 homes in the area, which is great. It's almost double what they were in the previous year. And they also announced that they're going to have a daily pick six wager with a guaranteed pool of $6,000. So that's kind of exciting for the horse players out there.
Yeah, and if you're in the viewing area, you can check that out on the digital channels 190 and 182. All right, it's that time again. Let's see what's going on with Bob Hollywood Heyden for our Hollywood Minute, brought to you by Hoofbeats Magazine, reporting with horsepower.
Well, Holly, it's great to talk with you again. I hope life at the Meadowlands is treating you well. You know, the way the weather's been, it's been unbelievable, just up and down. It's supposed to get a little bit warmer here. Must wreak havoc with people trying to bet those races at the Meadowlands.
Oh, yeah, it definitely does. It's been a nasty January so far. Now, you don't see as many horses trying to go wire to wire as you would later on, but I like to bet a horse sometimes that does make a couple moves early, tires late, and then draws outside next couple starts, kind of forces his hand to finish from off the pace, and I found that has clicked the first 2 weeks pretty good, so I'm going to keep going on with that. You find that in January you have a lot of pretenders, and then in February a lot of contenders. So, you know, a lot of horses making those payments in November. They're racing in January in the Trendsetter and the Complex and the Clyde Herd. A lot of those horses really don't belong, but it's easy to make that payment. It's kind of painless. So you see horses in fuller fields in January, and they kind of sift themselves out come the second, third months of the year. Also, when you're handicapping, keep in mind, horses are coming from everywhere. Qualifiers, half-milers, Canada, layoffs, barn changes, you name it. So that's always a factor, too. And the fact that we didn't have a fall meet this year to precede has kind of muddied the form even more than usual, which is why in our first week, a guy like Yannick Gingras, one of the top drivers in the world, had 5 horses that won. They all paid double digits. We saw George Brennan win with a 39-1 shot. We saw a 10, 11, and 10 pick 3 come in one day. So pretty much anything goes the first 3 or 4 weeks, and it's been reflected in the prices.
Well, speaking of long shots, we have a question here for our stump Bob Heyden, and it's a long shot that I think you're going to be able to answer this one, so let's give it a shot. We have Eric Hahn from Ireland, who actually writes in to ask, what horse holds the track record at Annamore Raceway in County Armagh, Ireland?
I know, it's Paul St. Patrick.
And you're wrong. But I have to say the horse that did it does have North American connections. His name is Crown Manhattan. He's a 2003 son of Northern Luck out of a log mare, and he paced in 155.56 in a free-for-all competition. He's owned by Ruth Phillips of Wales. So we will be sending a USTA prize pack to Eric for stumping you, but I really can't hold this one against you. If you would have gotten it, I would have been really surprised.
Yeah, that was a tough one, and there's a lot of water between me and him on that question, but that's okay. They used to ship horses over. We don't see it hardly anymore, but with the IRE in parentheses after the name for the Ireland bred, so it has happened here before.
All right, well, Holly, we thank you so much, and we'll see whether we can get another stumper for you next week.
Great. We'll see you then.
All right, well, more great tidbits from Bob. It's always great to see what he's able to come up with each week. And on to other news, we've got the Gala Blue Chip Scholarship, which is going to be presented this weekend. Martin Scharf gives out $15,000 each year to a scholarship recipient. It's a student whose parents are somehow involved in the harness racing industry, and this year's winner is Maddie Dudka. So it's nice to see that Martin Sharp's able to give back in this way and honor his great pacer, Gala Blue Chip.
Mm-hmm. And students who would like a little bit more information about this scholarship, they can contact HHYF at 317-867-5877, or you can just go to their website, www.hhyf.org. The application deadline is April 30th for this year. All right, that wraps up another episode of Here They Come. Thanks for tuning in. Real quick, I'd like to thank Dave Brower, Bob Heyden, Nicole Kraft, and Rich Johnston, our guy behind the soundboard. You can check us out at ustrotting.com each week. Be sure to check in next week. We'll be up and running again. I'm Jonathan Marsh.
And I'm Kate Lockhart.
Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time on Here They Come.